Hi, this is Cheryl McQueen, designer with Bello's Designs. This video tutorial will show you how to create a lovely moonlit scene with mist on a lake. This was actually inspired by a painting I once saw, and I decided I could turn the inspiration into a lovely card. So let's take a look at the supplies that I'll be using today. We will start out with a Lavinia Multifarious Smooth and Supreme piece of cardstock. This one has been cut to 4 3/4 by 3.5 inches. Then for our frame around our main art piece, I've just used a regular piece of cardstock that's been cut to 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches. For our card base, I've taken another piece of cardstock. I cut an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock in half, and then just took one of those pieces and folded that in half. We will actually only be using one stamp today, and that's going to be the Christmas Tree Group by Lavinia, which is LAV021. Now, when I created this, I actually did not mask out my moon, and I went ahead and used a white ink and a stamp from Altenew. This one is called Mini Moon. So that is another alternative that you can do. But I think today I'm just going to go ahead and try and mask out the moon, and we'll go from there. And as I stated before, we're going to mask out the moon. I actually have just a little circle here that I cut out myself. I actually made this piece before I started working with Bello's Designs, and they have some great circle masks that you can buy on the website, and I'll have the link for you on that. For our inks, for the regular inks, we're going to use the VersaFine Clair Nocturne and the VersaFine Clair Warm Breeze. For our colors, I have chosen to use the Distress inks. You can use any colors that you have that are very similar to these. With my Distress inks, we'll use the Squeezed Lemonade, the Uncharted Mariner, the Fired Brick, and Seedless Preserves, and the Black Soot. We're also going to use Pan Pastel. I used the Titanium White to just create our mist and little clouds on our piece today. We're also going to use some acrylic paint. That's just to add a little bit of interest. As you can see, I have got the kind of the teal color here with the warm breezes and the black. But in order to bring that out, I decided to add some, I guess, highlights you might call them, with the acrylics. So I've got this one. This is a Viridian, so something that's a light teal or mint color. And then we will have a gray that we will use to highlight the trees, and then white, which we can use for our white caps. And of course, with that, you're going to need to have a couple of paintbrushes or something that you like. I've got two different ones, a flat one and a round one. We'll also use a gel pen. That's going to give us a little bit of accenting on our moon, and if we need to do some accenting in our waves and white caps, then we'll have the white gel pen to do that with. You'll also want to have on hand some daubers. This time I'm going to use my daubers to add my colors in, and then if you'd like to have a brush on hand to help smooth out some of the blending, you can do that as well. I always like to use a stamping platform when I do my cards. So I have my stamping platform here. As you can see, I've got a sticky grid down. That's because I prefer not to have to use magnets. I just stick my card right down to the sticky grid and don't have to worry about the magnets. And then as we put our card together, you can use an adhesive tape or a craft glue that's made for papers. So whatever you've got on hand works just great. All right, so let's get started working on our project. So what we're going to do is start out by taking our art card piece, and we're going to take our mask that we're going to use for our moon, and just place that up here in the upper right hand corner. I just use a little piece of painter's tape that helps me to keep it in place a little bit easier. Let me go ahead and see if we can't zoom in just a little bit, get you a little bit closer to seeing our view here. So once we do that, we're going to start out with the squeezed lemonade. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just right above the halfway point and add my yellow using a little dauber. The reason I wanted to go ahead and use daubers this time is so that I've got just a little bit more control over where it actually goes. So I'm just going to dip it into my ink and just streak it back and forth across the line here. This is just going to kind of start creating our look of that midday point, that midpoint where the sun has gone down or just about gone down, but the moon has come up. So as you can see, I've just added kind of a little streak right there of the squeezed lemonade. Then what I'm going to do is move on to the fired brick. Same process. We'll just take our dauber and do a streak across the sky. You can overlap a little bit. This actually adds a little bit of blending on the colors. You get a little bit of an orangey where the two colors kind of overlap a little bit. And go ahead and do that up just a little bit higher. You can put this color on as dark or as light as you feel. I like to go ahead and get it just a little bit darker, just to give it some richness. So I'm going to go back over the first little layer that I put in there, just to give a little bit more richness on the color. Alright, so now that we've got that color on, we're going to go ahead and move on to our black soot. So there's our black soot. And this we're going to do at the very top. Again, you can overlap a little bit of your colors there. I'm going to make that fairly dark, so I'll go over it a time or two so that we can get a really dark sky up there. All right. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and move on to the portion of the lower part of the card, which is going to be our lake. So for our lake, we want to go ahead and grab the Uncharted Mariner. And then after we do the Uncharted Mariner, we will go back with the black soot again at the beginning. So I'll go ahead and do this and probably do, so you don't have to sit and watch, I'll speed up the process just a little bit. So now that we have all of our colors done, we can go ahead and remove the moon mask. And I know you're sitting here looking at this going, boy, that doesn't look very good. But once you start adding all your elements on top of it, it's going to just fall in place. The colors will really start to look nice. Now I'm going to take just a little bit of the black soot that's kind of edged around it and just kind of do a little bit of shading with the gray, with the black soot, and I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit in with what's off on my dauber already. This is just to give it a little bit of color and a little bit of mystery to it. Now at this point in time we can go ahead, if you have got a moon mask or something that you can use this type of stamp with to add your craters, then you can use that, which I'll go ahead and do here, or you can just draw them in with using a pen, or if you want to use your gray acrylic paint, you can do that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my stamping platform, and I'm going to place my card down on that, and then I'm just going to go ahead and place that moon mask with the craters on it on top of my moon, and then using the Nocturne, I'm just going to go ahead and ink up my stamp and just do a really light impression. I'm not going to press it down real hard. I'm just going to kind of do a quick one just to kind of get a little bit of that crater look on there. And then I may go back in and add just a little bit more of the black soot across there just to give it that mysterious look that I'm kind of looking for. All right, and so now I'm going to go ahead and move on to putting the trees in place. So we're going to start out with the warm breeze. So what you'll need to do, and you know what, actually I think what I want to do, because I think it'll add just a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and take the Seedless Preserve, and I'm just going to take a little bit on my brush and just add some right over where the skyline meets the water. I think this will give a little bit more of that look of the sun going down. So now I'm going to take this piece, and this is the Christmas tree group, and I'm just going to kind of line it there a little bit higher up, because we're going to put another row with the black in place below it. So now we're just going to ink up our stamp. This is with the Warm Breeze again on our VersaFine Clair. My moon mask out of the way there. Press down so that we get a really nice image there. And then we're going to go in and add a second little bit over here on the side, since our stamp wasn't quite as wide as our piece of paper. I'm going to go ahead and put a little piece there to keep me from getting my sticky grid messed up. All right, and so there is our first layer of trees, and this again, as I said, what has been done in the warm breezes. So now we're going to move on to doing it in the nocturne. And I'm going to go ahead and wipe off my stamp with a baby wipe. Even though it won't hurt to have that little bit of that warm breezes on there, I would like to kind of go ahead and keep it as close and pure to the black as possible. Alright, and so now what I want to do is lay this in a way that the trees are kind of in between each other. All right. I'm just going to go ahead and ink that up off screen here. And let's see, I actually think I'm going to move that down just a hair. Maybe right about there. So we make sure that we've got a good amount of our warm breezes color showing through. All right, and then we will need to move on to our second layer. And we'll line that up again so that they're kind of in between each other. Ink up the stamp. And stamp again. All right. Now I think I want to go ahead and go back in and add just a little bit more of the Mariner Blue, the Uncharted Mariner. And add that down here a little bit, just to give a little bit more of the water showing before we actually get to our black shadows of the water. There we go. And that takes the water right up to our tree line. Alright, so now let's go ahead and see if we can't add some highlights to our card here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up and put the stamping platform aside. And then with that, we will move on to adding our highlights. Okay, so let's go ahead and get out our paints. Now I've got this little paint tray here. You can just put it down on your surface or whatever you like to. You're not going to need very much paint at all. So I'm just going to take a very small little daub of the Viridian or whatever you might have that's kind of a teal or mint color of paint that's just a little bit lighter. And I'm going to use my flat brush. And what I want to do is basically just lightly kind of dab with that flat edge to add some highlights. So I'll show you what I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to take a dash, literally not much paint at all, and just kind of dash it on some of the leaves, the branches. And that's just to add a little bit of depth to our trees. So I know that's probably going to be a little bit hard to see. Hopefully you can kind of see that. And we're just going to do that on all of the trees that are that color. So I will go ahead and do that, and probably go ahead and speed it up just a little bit so that you don't have to watch the entire time of me doing them. But we will just add these highlights to the branches. Now we're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing with the gray on our black trees. So I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush off just a little bit so I don't mix my colors. Clean that off, and then we're going to go ahead and put just a little bit of the gray onto my little tray and do the exact same process. So we're just going to take that gray and just dash it on to a few of the branches. And I'm actually going to add a little bit of white because I think that is a little darker than I want on the gray. So I'll just create my own just slightly lighter shade of gray. And yeah, that's much better. And then we're just going to start highlighting the branches on our black trees. I think what I want to do is I want to add just a little bit more darker background. So I'm going to take some of my black soot and add in just a little bit more density to the trees there, so that when I go in and put that little bit of highlighting on the branches, it will stand out a little bit more, and our trees will have a little bit more of the shadows that you would get from having quite a few trees bunched together. So let me add just a hair more darkness there, and then we'll finish up with the little highlighting of our branches. All right. So now that we have gotten that done, we're going to want to go ahead and add some white caps and a little bit of water that's kind of hitting the shoreline right where the trees meet the water. So again, clean off my brush. And then get just a little touch of white acrylic paint. And then I'm just going to add some white caps into our water here. And I'm going to take just a little bit, kind of add it here where it's brushing up against the shoreline, right where the trees come down to the water. Alright, so now we've got some of that nice water white cap look to that. Now I'm going to go ahead and go back up into my, I actually think I'll use my white pen. And I want to kind of accent a little bit, I guess you might say highlight, just a little bit around where our moon is. Just give it a little bit of interest there. And then we'll just have a few spots where we'll add some of the lighter look into the craters. This is where maybe the light might be hitting the moon on a particular area of the craters and everything, just to give it a little bit of interest here. And again, that's just kind of a random drawing. It doesn't have to be anything that you've planned out or anything, just kind of add some accents to it. And then if you would like to, it might be nice to have just a few stars, and you can just dot a few little white marks very lightly into the sky so that it looks like the stars are starting to come out. All right. So now let's go ahead and move on to adding our mist in to kind of give it that misty look that we're looking for. Okay, and so for doing the mist, I am going to get out my titanium white pan pastel. And then I've got a Q-tip here that I've kind of fluffed the ends up. I just kind of like to loosen that up so I can get a really fluffy end. You could use a paintbrush if you like. I just like the way a Q-tip kind of makes it very soft. So I'm just going to start brushing some of that pan pastel up along the shoreline. Just to kind of give that look of the mist on the water. And then we'll just add some places, not solid, just some little places where the mist is kind of coming up on the water. Maybe a little bit more on my shoreline. There, that kind of gives that little look of mist. And we can also go ahead and smear it just a little bit to make it a little bit lighter in places. Maybe have a wisp or two coming up around the trees. So we've got that look of a misty atmosphere. Now let's go ahead and add a little bit of wispy clouds as well, just to kind of add to that atmosphere and carry across that feeling of the mistiness. Be sure and have it go across your moon as well. And if it kind of goes across your trees, that just gives a little bit more dimension as well. All right. And there we have our Misty Moonlit Lake. So now we just need to put our card together. If you'd like to, at this point in time, you can also go ahead and do just a light spritzing on it to make sure that your pan pastels stay in place. So I think what I may do is go ahead and grab some hairspray and just give it a really quick little spritz. All right, so let's just a very couple quick spritzes. All of that's just so that we don't wipe off our pan pastel. All right, so let's put the card together. Let me go ahead and wipe down the surface so that we don't have any of our inks that might smear onto our project. Grab a paper towel too and wipe that clean very quickly. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to take my background piece, my frame piece. And as I said, you can use a paper craft glue, or for my demonstrations, I usually like to use the adhesive tape because then it just goes a little bit quicker. So we're going to take this and line it up. Whoops. And create a really nice frame. And then we will take our cardstock and add that on, doing the exact same process. That lined up where we want it. And there we have our finished product. Thank you so much for watching my video tutorial today. I hope you will give this card a try. It is such a lovely and peaceful card, and easier to complete than it looks. Remember to check out more tutorials on the design team page at delbellosdesigns.com. Have a great day.